Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Build Your Copywriting Business podcast. Hello, ladies.
Oh, hello.
Hello.
Hello. So as always, I am joined by my fabulous co-host, Kate Sittars. Hello, Kate.
Hello.
Hello. Oh, just one hello today. Very professional. And we have the pleasure of being joined by Crystalynn Shelton. Now, Crystalynn is a licensed CPA and QuickBooks Top 100 Pro Advisor, helping startups, small businesses, and million-dollar companies alike take control of their finances through accounting, software, training, and consulting. Hello, Crystalynn.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Thank you so much for joining us. We were chatting a little bit before the episode and saying we know that our listeners and our followers and our students are going to be very excited about this because as copywriters, we're in control of the words, but sometimes when it comes to the numbers, that can get a little intimidating.
We don't like to look at them.
We don't like
to. Exactly. It's okay.
Ooh,
You're not alone.
So maybe that's one of the first places to dig in is when you don't consider yourself a numbers person, when it kind of intimidates you. What are maybe the first steps to starting to get comfortable with looking at your numbers?
Right. Yeah, that's a great question. And, so many people that go into business obviously don't have the background that I have, right? They're not accountants. They haven't had any bookkeeping experience at all. And so I can definitely understand the intimidation factor. So typically what I recommend, it's kind of like anything, you kind of have to just face your fears. Now, for those copywriters who have a bookkeeper or maybe a CPA or someone that manages their books for them, I actually would start with that person. And I recommend that they have a sit-down meeting with them at least once a month to go over their numbers. If that person is really good, they will welcome a meeting like that. And it's the opportunity for the business owner to ask questions and to just sort of understand what's happened with the business within the last month. Because my clients, once they come to me, they're on a schedule where they're managing their books on a monthly basis, or the person that's doing it is managing those books monthly. And then there's a sit down meeting that takes place every month to go over those numbers. So I would say start there if you have someone. If you're kind of like still trying to figure it out yourself, or like you've just started up and maybe you are using Excel right now, right? You don't have an accounting software. You're kind of just bootstrapping it right now. Exactly. Excel is fine. That's usually where everyone starts. And so I would say that the easiest or the best thing to do is to try to find a QuickBooks expert like myself. You guys can reach out to me. I have clients everywhere. But if you want someone local, there's a QuickBooks directory. And if you just kind of Google QuickBooks Pro or QuickBooks ProAdvisor, there is a website that's called Find a ProAdvisor. Put your zip code in there and you can find like the top people in your area. What I love about that directory is it has all the certifications that person has, how long they've been in business. It has client reviews, so you can see what their clients are saying about them. It's got a ton of information that you can access. And it's a reliable source because QuickBooks verifies all that stuff before it ever goes up in the profile. And so you find someone that's an expert and you have them set you up and teach you how to properly manage your books. That's what I recommend.
Yeah, that makes sense. And in certainly big picture, I'm sure you couldn't possibly tell us everything in this interview, but what does properly managing your books entail? Like what kinds of numbers do they need to be looking at regularly?
Yeah, so great question. So in that meeting that I mentioned on a monthly basis, I typically recommend that you look at your profit and loss statement. That's going to tell you the profitability of your business for a period of time. And then I recommend you look at a report called Accounts Receivable Aging. And that's simply how much money do your customers owe you? How much is owed to you, right? Real important. You don't want your customer invoices to be sitting out there unpaid for a long time, right? And the longer your invoices are outstanding, the likelihood is that they won't be paid if you're not following up. So accounts receivable aging, accounts payable aging, which is the opposite of accounts receivable. It's what you owe to your suppliers and your vendors. So definitely to maintain good credit, you want to look at that report regularly, make sure you're staying on top of your bills. The balance sheet report, which is more of a net worth of the business and shows all your bank and credit card balances. So I would say those are the 4 key reports I recommend you review. Cash flow statement is good too, to see how you're doing from a cash flow perspective. So maybe 5 reports. So those are the ones that I would look at on a monthly basis and really understand how to read those reports and how to take that data to make, business decisions for your business, different decisions. So, yeah.
That makes sense. And we've heard this before, but I want to verify it with you that you want to keep your business and personal accounts separate. So personal checking, business checking, personal credit card, business credit card.
Yes, ma'am. That's probably the number one issue that I have to deal with new clients. We all do it. I did it too. When I first started out, I didn't see the point to have a separate business account because like many people, I started my business as my side hustle, right? I had a 9-to-5, I had my side hustle. I was growing my clientele so I could eventually leave the 9-to-5, but I used a portion of my paycheck to fund my business. So I was just like, why would I have a separate account? The business isn't making any money. I just have expenses, right? But yeah, so I get it, but it's really important to open up that business bank account, even if you're still funding it with personal funds, and just going through that what I call going through the motions of withdrawing that money from your personal account, depositing it in your business account, and then in QuickBooks, categorizing as owner investment. You want to keep track of the money that you are personally investing in your business. I don't know if either of you guys are fans of Shark Tank. It's like one of my favorite shows. And they always ask, how much money have you invested in this business? And a lot of people don't even know the answer to that because everything is just like this. It's all in one account and it's all, together. The other reason is the IRS frowns upon business and personal funds in the same account. And so you definitely don't want to get yourself in a situation where you're audited and you don't have any separation of those transactions at all, because it just looks very suspicious. So definitely that's one of the first things we deal with is I have my clients open up a separate bank account and I teach them how to go about recording things if you're funding it with your personal funds in the beginning. So yeah.
That makes sense. So owner investment, what would you label it when you I made money this month and now I need to live off of some of that money. So what do you label it when you send that money to your personal account to live on?
Yeah. So if you're withdrawing money and it's for personal use, then it goes to an account called owner withdrawal or owner draw. It's probably more, probably heard that before. But then certain businesses, you may get to a point where you actually want to draw a paycheck as an employee. And so then definitely that's going to be where it goes to wages and your payroll taxes and all of those good things. But if you're just withdrawing money as a business owner and not an employee, it is classified as owner withdrawal or owner draw.
Yeah. And it occurs to me now, I should say we have students and listeners and followers from all over the world. So I assume that primarily the information we're talking about today is specific to US law. So just putting that out there, everyone. However, I know that there are also going to be plenty of things that plenty of tools and tactics that people can use no matter where they are in the world.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
And I want to add to you, if CCA students, if you're thinking wait, but what investments am I making in my business? I don't have to spend money. So and correct me, Crystalynn, if you feel wrong, the investment in the course, it would be an owner investment in your business to buy the CCA. And then your portfolio is the other big one. So yes, you're not going to have a ton of, investments maybe right up front, but then obviously as time goes on and you're making money, which you will. I know, again, people are at all stages of their business, then you're going to be making even more investment into your business. But if you're just starting out, those are kind of the two.
Yeah. And just to be clear, thinking back to the way my mind worked before I was deeper into business, when we say investments, what we really mean is that's kind of the professional term for it. But what we really mean is purchases for the business. Mm-hmm. We're not talking about like mutual funds investments or stock market investments, right?
Right. Yeah. Right. No, exactly. No, I'm really just talking about your personal funds are being invested into the business, and then you're using those funds to pay for expenses and pay for a course or pay for whatever you need for your business. Right. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what other mistakes do you see freelancers or newer freelancers, or I guess just any freelancers make when it comes to their income, their funds, or tracking it, or all that stuff?
So one of the other challenges that many business owners have is keeping track of the money that they spend on their business, right? I mean, even for me, receipts are just like, it's just, I've never found the perfect system, and I've tried many. And so one of the things that I really like about QuickBooks, which is the primary software that I use for my clients, is you can actually just take a picture of your receipts and it uploads to the software. And so what's nice about that is once it uploads to the software, you can always access it later on electronically, or you can also print it out if you need it, and you can toss that paper. So you don't have to deal with, what do I do with this piece of paper? For a whole entire year until my taxes, it's time to file my taxes, right? Like most people. So I think a lot of people don't realize that while your Excel spreadsheet is great, having an accounting software allows you to go paperless and automate things, such as uploading your receipts. So I would just say it's while it does cost you money to purchase the software, it's worth it. Because there's so many benefits. I would say another benefit would be connecting all of your bank accounts. So if you have a business bank account or accounts and credit cards that you use for your business, all of those accounts can be connected to your accounting software, so that instead of sitting at a computer and being a data entry clerk, the data just flows into the software and no one's sitting there manually, keying things in like we used to do way back when. Long time ago.
I love that idea of, or even just the concept of everything just flowing into one place. There's one bucket where everything lives. Because I remember back when I was freelance primarily, it was, I'd have some receipts in a folder in my inbox, and I'd have some print receipts in a folder somewhere. And then I'd have to go and try to, and I guess now, that was kind of a while ago, but,
how about the shoe boxes?
I know. Yeah, the shoe boxes. Yes. And I suppose now you can take a photo. QuickBooks is amazing, and you can take a photo of a receipt, and if you need to, if you're not at QuickBooks yet, take a photo receipt and email it to yourself and put it into that subfolder. But I think that is so important to take action at the moment when you get the receipt to put it in the right place. Versus like sticking it in a pile. And I'm actually right now looking at the piles on my desk, which are not receipts, nothing financial. Don't anybody worry. But like the mail comes in, or the client check comes in, and you pay the check, but then you forget to record all that stuff. And I guess maybe that's the part of it. Even aside from QuickBooks, what tips do you have for people to stay organized? Is it a matter of looking at, we talked about meeting with your accountant once a month, but is it a matter of, do you recommend a certain cadence that people kind of like organize their files, clean up? Yes.
So what I would say is It really depends on the amount of the volume that you have, kind of how much activity you've got going on. So for some people, it might be worth it to go into QuickBooks and categorize your transactions that have come in on a daily basis. For other people, once a week is probably going to be ideal. And so it really just depends on your volume, I would say. But typically, I would say at a minimum, once a week. Pick a day. Usually Fridays are a light day for me. And so on Fridays, that's one of the days where I've blocked out on my calendar, maybe an hour to 90 minutes, where I go in and review transactions within the software, categorize them, and that sort of thing. And so, and even if you don't take a picture of the receipts right away, but maybe you have receipts for the week, that's a good time. Go ahead and take those pictures, get those uploaded to QuickBooks as well, shred those receipts. So I would say pick one day out of the week that works. And then, do that process. And then what I typically do in terms of the once a month meeting, because I actually do that, I meet with myself, but still. And so I will block that time on my calendar on a Saturday morning. I'll do it super early. My husband's still asleep. I don't have kids, have that issue. And so I will, have my coffee and I will run my reports and I'll look at them and really take in where things went well in terms of how sales were, how my expenses were, if was anything out of control, so that I can make adjustments for the next month. And so that Saturday is usually the second Saturday of every month, because by then I have all my bank statements and credit card statements. I can reconcile everything completely and then look at those final reports. So I do have it on my calendar because, in all honesty, for me, if it's not on my calendar, it will not get done. Like, people laughing, I'm not kidding. Nope. It has to be on my calendar.
Yeah. And I want to emphasize that because you are
probably too organized.
Well, I don't know if there's such a thing, but you are a numbers person and you still have to schedule it. So everybody who's listening or watching and thinking like, no, not really, but like, I probably don't need to schedule it. You probably do. You probably do.
You do.
Yeah.
The other thing that I love about doing it early in the morning, and this just works for me, is I have so much, I have so much freedom afterwards because I know I've taken care of that and I can enjoy the rest of my weekend. It's amazing how much I can enjoy having fun because I've taken care of my business first thing in the morning and I'm good. I don't have this sea of unknown, I don't know how I did. I don't want to know how I did. Like, some people really have a phobia about looking at the numbers because the numbers don't lie. Like, what you see on black and white on that piece of paper, that's how you did. That's how things are. Not in your little fantasy world. No, what's on that paper.
Yeah.
And so that's the other reason why I like taking care of it like that early in the morning.
It reminds me of how when, now our taxes are all through an accountant for our company. But when my taxes as a freelancer for myself, beginning of February, when I had to pull all that stuff together, I would block out a weekend day. And then the plan was like, all right, you're going to get to order in dinner from wherever, once it's all done, you get to order in dinner from wherever you want to order it in, open a bottle of wine, enjoy yourself. And you could certainly, if you're someone who really doesn't want to do your numbers, even though you've got it scheduled every Friday morning, maybe you do your numbers and then you go out and you go to that special coffee shop that you like as a little treat and get yourself chocolate croissant, just saying. But I love it. I think that's a great point. Because then you got it done and then you reward yourself for getting it done.
Yes.
Right.
I'm a big person. I'm a big believer in rewarding yourself. So I typically will, have a prize for myself at the end of getting it all done.
Yeah.
Because just because I'm a numbers person, it doesn't mean I actually look forward to doing that every month. I don't. I don't. I know it needs to be done, but I'm not like, oh, goody, I can't wait to. No, I'm not like that. I enjoy the numbers, but I don't necessarily enjoy having to sit down and do it. But I'm glad once I've done it.
Well, and that's part of being a business owner, right? Is there just some things that we don't necessarily feel like doing, or maybe even things that intimidate us a little bit, especially as it can be when it comes to numbers, but that's still something you have to do. And so we have to figure out a way to make ourselves do it, and maybe even make it more palatable for ourselves. Yeah.
I think the other thing too that people will realize is, instead of waiting until January or February to compile 12 months worth of information, which is very stressful. I have done that too, because I thought I'll get to it. And then when you sit down to do it, like you said, you block out a weekend, which is what I've done. It is crazy. Like, you would not, I mean, all of you guys, and even, the folks listening are probably like, yep, been there, done that. It's so stressful. And so once you go from that to actually managing it on a monthly basis and looking at it, you realize, wow, this is a lot easier. And so when January and February gets here, you're literally only maybe pulling together 1 month's worth of information, December, not like 12 months.
Yes.
Whole different experience.
Yeah. Friends, listen to this woman. Where were you 10 years ago? I needed you 10 years ago.
Yeah, whole different experience. You actually are going to look forward to tax season, people. I promise you.
At what point do you recommend, going from that DIY mentality to looking to hire someone like yourself or whomever to do it for you?
If it's something you don't look forward to, I would say as soon as you can, delegate it out. Because really, all of us, a lot of people, you don't go into business to do your bookkeeping. You go into business to pursue your passion, whatever that may be. And so as soon as you can afford to pay someone, a professional, I would say do it. But still, I still want the business owners out there to realize, just because you hire someone to manage your books, that doesn't mean you have a hands-off approach. Absolutely not. You still need to understand what that person is doing. And if you've been doing it, then you understand it, but you still want to have those regular monthly meetings to stay on top of what's happening in the business, even if that person's doing the day-to-day. So,
absolutely. And now help us, maybe it's just me, I don't know, understand the difference between a bookkeeper and an accountant. Can you work with both, or can you work with one or the other? And clearly I have no idea.
Yeah. So that's a common question that I get. I would say the quote unquote textbook response for that, in terms of what a bookkeeper is a bookkeeper does all of the day-to-day work, the invoicing, the recording, the categorizing of the numbers, let's say, to make sure all of those steps are done. And then the CPA reviews and analyzes the financial statements to make sure there aren't any errors, or to help give insight to what the numbers say about the business. So there are skilled and qualified bookkeepers that can do both.
Okay.
But there are many that can only do the day-to-day and aren't really skilled in the analytical side of interpreting the financial statements.
Yeah.
At a high level, where the business owner can, kind of do strategic planning and that type of thing. So it kind of depends on, again, where you are in your business. You definitely probably can absolutely start with the bookkeeper. But I think as you grow, you're going to have to, even if you keep the bookkeeper on, because they're going to be cheaper than have a CPA do the day-to-day. You have a bookkeeper do the day-to-day, and then you have the CPA once a month, maybe sit down with the CPA and go over the numbers to talk strategy, strategic planning and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Or I guess if you're doing your weekly numbers, maybe you can be kind of your own bookkeeper, and again, reward yourself, chocolate croissant, and then work with your CPA. And I think too, especially in the States, it can be a little confusing for people about the quarterly tax payments. Full disclosure, Kate and I are not the professionals here, so please don't anyone come to us looking for help with your taxes. But we can say that as blanket statement in the States, if you're a sole proprietor, you're paying quarterly taxes, and maybe other times. Thank goodness we have an accountant. How are we still in business? Just kidding. We have an excellent accountant. That's how we're still in business. But right. That was also one of the things that I liked about having the accountant is that they would run my taxes for the year before. And then they would say, okay, here is what your estimates are. If you make roughly the same amount, here's what they give me little forms to print out and send out if they still do that.
Oh, yes.
Again, a while ago. Good. Right. The government still takes checks. They love that. But then they would give it to me and I would, and have the deadline on there. So I would send it out. And as long as my income was similar to what it was last year, those were correct. And if it wasn't, all I had to do was call up my CPA and say, hey, I'm actually I had a fantastic month and I'm making a ton more. And they could say, all right, well, and give me a number that I could put in for my quarterly taxes. So I didn't have to think about that. And that's, right. To your point, that's not something I wanted to think about. That's not something I was skilled in. Still not something I'm skilled in thinking about. And it was a good use of a small part of my income to outsource that.
Yeah, it's totally worth it. And the other thing I would add in terms of because what you're talking about now is tax planning, which a lot of people don't even think about doing. And that's why every year at tax time, they're shocked that they have to write a check for X amount. And so, like you said, a good CPA or accountant that has filed your taxes will also provide you with, here's what you should pay quarterly next year so that, you don't have this big check to write at the end of the year. But if, like what you said, you grow really quickly and you have like a great month or a great 6 months or, what have you, you definitely want to reach out to your accountant or the person that files your taxes to let them know, because not only will it adjust what you're paying quarterly so you don't get surprised at the end, but it also may trigger a change in your legal entity. So depending on if you're a sole prop, it might make more sense for you to think about becoming an LLC or an S Corp to minimize your tax liability. Like all of that comes into play. And so that's another reason why you definitely want to stay in touch with someone who is a CPA or can help guide you in that way.
I was just going to say, I can imagine people thinking, oh my gosh, but how will I know when I'm supposed to become an LLC or a corporation or any of that kind of, that's the beauty of this is we don't have to know. There are professionals who can tell us, and I would say too, that if people are listening, they're like, well, I don't know, you can even just reach out and book a call with an accountant. You don't necessarily have to hire the accountant to be your accountant forever. You can just find an accountant who has some expertise and just book a call with them for an hour and get your questions answered.
Yes, absolutely. Book a call, get your questions answered. And most people, I would think, I know I do this, is I always provide a complimentary initial consultation for potential new clients. So, because at the end of the day, it's sort of a two-way interview. They're trying to feel you out. They have some questions. And also for me, I'm really picky about the clients that I take on because I've had nightmare clients and I don't want to go down that road again. So it's for me as well to determine if we are even going to be a good fit. And if not, then I always have someone I can refer them out to, right? If I'm like, this person's going to be too high maintenance and I'm going to send them over to
your enemies. Do you refer them to your enemies?
I don't. Because the one thing if I give a referral, it's my name on the line. So I want to make sure it's a good referral. It's just someone who maybe doesn't mind, dealing with high maintenance people because they're going to charge them. But for me, I don't want the stress. And so definitely, I would say that makes, perfect sense. So
yeah. Well, and I have to say too, I think for those of us who are like, oh, talking to my accountant, it's going to be such a dry, boring conversation. Clearly not the case. Clearly not the case.
Why do people always think accountants are boring? We're not all the same. Okay.
Yes, you are a lot of fun. A lot of fun. Oh, awesome. This is so helpful. Now, before we wrap up, are there any more tips or anything that you want to share with the listeners and the viewers?
Yes. So I would say one last tip that I would like to share is try to use as little cash as possible when you're purchasing items for your business or paying for expenses. Use something that's going to have a record. So use your credit card or use your debit card, or write a check if you need to do that. But something that's going to be a record. So let's say you lose the receipt, but you still have your bank statement and your credit card statement as proof that you paid for something. Because when you pay cash and you lose the receipt, you have zero proof. And, small business owners, you want to be able to maximize those tax deductions. And in order to do that, you've got to have the proof that you even had that purchase or made that expense. So I would just say, credit card, debit card, and very little cash if at all possible.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, Crystalynn, this has been fantastic. Very, very helpful. You have, I think, made us all feel more comfortable with our numbers. You've also dispelled the myth about accounts being boring. So good for you.
Yes.
That was my goal. Everywhere. Like, thank goodness. Now, if somebody listening is thinking, oh my gosh, she is the person for me, how can I work with her? Where can people find you? What's your web address and what socials?
Yes. So I actually have a couple of gifts for your listeners today.
Thank you.
So if they go to CrystallynnShelton.com/podcasts, and it's plural, so podcast with an S, I have 2 free downloads on there. So one of them is a checklist that's called Your First 7 Days in QuickBooks. And what's nice about that checklist is it coincides with my latest book. So I have a book available on Amazon called Mastering QuickBooks 2023. And on that checklist, it refers to the chapters in the book that help you complete the tasks that are on the list. So you can download that for free. The other checklist is for maybe business owners that are more seasoned and have been around the block a few times, if you will. And it's called your checklist on closing the books. So all the things you should do to get your books ready before you hand them over to the tax professional to file your tax return. On that same page, there is a button that allows you to schedule the complimentary consultation that I mentioned. So I take clients who are located anywhere and everywhere because we pretty much just meet virtually. And so you can schedule that consultation with me. The initial one is free, and we meet and talk and kind of come up with the best plan for your particular situation. Last but not least, I just released my first online course, and it's called QuickBooks Bootcamp. And it is available on that page as well. So it's more of a self-directed training course. A lot of business owners just can't take the time out of, regular day to meet with me. But, at midnight, hey, they've got a couple hours free and can log in and watch a video and learn how to properly use QuickBooks. So that's who I did the course for.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah. And I can tell you, as someone who tried to figure out QuickBooks on her own, it is very helpful to have a guide, a course. So that's terrific. Yeah. Yeah, excellent.
But thank you so much for having me on the show. It's so much fun.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. This was super helpful. And we will put all those links in the show notes. So if anybody was trying to scribble all that down, don't worry. We'll have it right there. Yeah, excellent. Well, awesome. Crystalynn, this was fantastic. Thank you again for being on the podcast, for being on the video. And then with that, we will catch you all in the next episode. Bye, everybody. Like what you heard? Hit subscribe so you never miss a video. And if you're ready to take the first step toward becoming a copywriter yourself, sign up for a free video training right here.